Warm greetings. I am Mukti Sharma, Assistant Professor at Khalsa College of Education, Ranjit Avenue, Amritsar. Welcomes you all at KCGC TV. Today I am going to present my lecture on the topic from English literature, and my topic is poetry. If we talk about poetry, ample words come in our mind like thoughts, feeling, imagination, emotion, expression, spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, rhythm, rhythmical creation, creativity, and so on. Now, if I combine all these words and form a sentence, it conveys the meaning of poetry beautifully as poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, thoughts, imaginations, emotions with expressions and rhythmical creation. Poetry is the form of English literature that conveys a thought, describes a scene, or tells a story in a concentrated, lyrical, or arrangement of words. The poet uses a combination of rhymes, word choices, sounds, rhythm, structure, and many more to create a piece of writing that stirs the reader's mind. Now here the question arises that from where does this word poetry comes from? The word poetry comes from the Greek word poiesis, which means to make or to create. Poetry is the language of imagination and passion in a powerful and pleasant way. Various poets define the meaning of poetry in their own ways. For example, P.B. Shelley holds poetry is the record of the best and happiest moments from the best and happiest minds. According to Robert Frost, poetry is when an emotion has found thoughts and thoughts has found words. According to William Wordsworth, poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings recollected in tranquility. Here I would like to quote famous lines of William Wordsworth's poem, "My heart leaps when I behold." My heart leaps when I behold a rainbow in the sky. So was it my life begun. So it is now I am a man. Here in these lines, William Wordsworth recollected his childhood experiences, and these lines justify the meaning which William Wordsworth gave about poetry, that yes, poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings recollected in tranquility. Now let's discuss about the forms of poetry. There are two types of poetry, narrative poetry and non-narrative poetry. Now let's discuss it one by one. First of all, what is narrative poetry? Narrative poetry is also known as objective poetry, and it is completely impersonal. It tells us a story and often uses voices of both narrator as well as characters. It is written in metered verses. It may be a short or a long poem. The story it relates to may be complex. It is normally dramatic with various characters. For example, ballad, dramatic monologue, epic, and idyll. Now, first of all, what is ballad? Ballad is a song or a poem which tells us a story in a simple language and has lines which are repeated at the end of each verse. For example, oh, they rode on and on they rode, and all by the light of the moon, and until they came back to the Van water, and there they lighted down. Oh, they rode on and on they rode, and all by the light of the moon, until they came back to his mother's lap, and there they lighted down. Here I have spoken two stanzas, and if you notice that in each stanzas the lines are repeating at the end of each verses. So this is the correct form of writing a ballad. Now coming to the next, that is epic. Epic is basically a long narrative poem. Its salient features are, it is a long poem with lofty language, sublime theme and superhuman characters. For example, Milton's famous Paradise Lost, Homer's Iliad and Virgil's Aeneid are some of the examples, or you can say finest examples of epic. Dramatic monologue. Now first of all, we will discuss that what is monologue. See, in monologue there are two words. One is mono and other is log. Mono means single and log means speech. So, dramatic monologue is a type of poetry in a form of speech addressed to an individual character. The poems are dramatic in sense because they have theatrical quality in them. That is, the poem is meant to be read to an audience. To say the poem is a monologue means these are the words of a solitary speaker and no other words or dialogues coming from any other characters. One of the famous example of this is Robert Browning, My Last Duchess. Coming to the next one, that is idyll. Idyll has no distinct species by itself. It may sometimes be a longer poem, sometimes it may be a lyric or sometimes a passage from a ballad, epic, play or elegy. Idyll has no set forms. It is derived from the Greek word meaning little picture. In idyll, the poet presents picture in few words or series of picture composing a longer poem. Idyll is not mere a description of person, places or things. In fact, it is poet's own version of what he has seen or felt. It is an imaginative rendering of a picturesque scene or experiences. For example, William Wordsworth's famous poem Lines Written in March depicts spring season in England after the rain is over and gone. So, this is all about narrative poetry. Now, let's discuss what is non-narrative poetry. Non-narrative poetry, which is also known as subjective poetry, it is completely personal. It does not tell us about any story, but it reveals speakers' personal emotions, feelings, thoughts, experiences, state of mind, attitude, mode, observation, experiences, etc. The popular forms of non-narrative poetry are lyric, sonnet, ode and elegy. Now let's discuss about this in brief one by one. First of all, lyric. Lyric is a collection of verses making up a complete song or a short or a longer poem. In lyric, there is a speaker who expresses his emotions and thoughts. For example, Herrick's Two Blossoms and H.T. The Pool. Next is sonnet. Sonnet was introduced by Thomas Watt in 16th century. Sonnet is a 14-line poem. It has a fixed rhymic scheme with iambic pentameter. There are four types of sonnet: Shakespearean sonnet, Petrarchan sonnet, Spenserian sonnet and Milton sonnet. The next is ode. Ode is a non-narrative lyric. which addresses to a particular subject. It expresses in a grand style and mostly deals with a serious subject matter. For example, Ode on Grecian Urn, written by John Keats, Ode to West Wind by P.B. Shelley, and so others. The last one is elegy. Elegy is derived from the Greek word elegia, which means a lament. Elegy is a poem or a song of sorrow, especially over the death of somebody. It is a sad, spontaneous tribute of something loved and lost. So today I have discussed with you what is poetry and what are the forms of poetry. I hope this lecture proves informative to all of you. Thank you and have a nice day.